It is November the 22nd today. We have had a couple of days of cold weather with some frosts, little sprinkling of snow, and we're in for a storm this weekend. So let's see what I've been up to over this last month in preparation for winter. It has been a pretty busy time. I've started by pruning the apple tree, as you can see behind me. So it's a good time to do it right now. So, as you can see, I've got quite a lot of beds planted up with hardy annuals, and also I've done my tulips down here. So I've got about 300 tulips in trenches, 7 trenches down here, roughly 300 tulips. The reason I am using the hoops and the EnviroMesh is, to be honest, it's as much to keep out birds and pheasants and squirrels and things as anything else. It gives the plant a little bit of protection, and the good thing about it, it doesn't flap around and make a noise, and it doesn't really blow away so long as you've got it anchored down. So I sometimes need to do a little bit of corrective action, but on the whole it seems to work pretty well, and I've got it, so I might as well use it. So I've planted the tulips in little rows of 50 going that way with a label at the beginning and the end. I am a little bit alarmed that there appears to be a vole hole. So I hope to goodness that come the spring I do have some tulips coming up. So I've decided to put the corn cockle in. So I still have a few insurance plants in the greenhouse. So I've got corn cockle, cornflower, some daucus, Canterbury bells and foxglove in that bed, but mainly these are some annuals here. I've still got obviously biennials, the Sweet William, Hesperus and Honesty, and a bed of foxgloves just here, so they're all doing fine. And then I'm amazed that the Lavatera has survived 2 or 3 nights of sort of -3 frosts. It's a bit of an experiment. I mean, they're so leafy, I'm really surprised they haven't succumbed. I've got my clary sage in, that was autumn sown. An empty bed and then some more Sweet William just there. So the sweet pea arch has been stripped of all the sweet pea debris and the little clips I've saved for next year. The last thing I'm going to plant will be the ranunculus, which I'm planning to put in here once the weather has settled down. I'm not planning to do a huge amount with the perennials. I've still got a couple of months before they need to be cut back, and it's quite nice to leave them for as long as possible for the wildlife to be able to find little homes to shelter from this horrible weather from. So it's quite a good idea to leave those for a bit. So let's have a look in the greenhouse. So most things in the greenhouse have now been potted up into the pot size I'm planning to leave them in for the winter. So as I said, most things are in reasonable sized pots now. So the larkspur I'm going to be leaving in these pots over the winter. I'm going to overwinter these in the greenhouse. They just got completely mullered last winter when I put them outside, so virtually going to ignore them. The nigella are a little bit weeny, but I've just transplanted those. We'll see if those survive the winter. Got a couple of trays of those. The only thing I haven't got round to putting into a bigger pot are these Lavatera here. So these queuing up, waiting to be put into bigger pots. I've done half of them, which are in the big greenhouse. You'll see those in a moment. The allium and gypsophila and sweet peas are just staying there all winter, hopefully. So far so good. So quite a lot of potting up has been done and things are just going to stay in here now. And I've also planted out my Orlea in the greenhouse ready for the spring. And I've got fleece at the weddy down here. So I've been throwing that over the Ami and the Lavatera just to give it a bit of protection. I tend to bring the agapanthus into the greenhouse over the winter, so luckily we did that just in the nick of time before the frosts these last couple of days. Finally, the ranunculus have decided to sprout. The Chiaro still don't look amazing, to be honest. The Bianco are coming on okay, and the salmon have been, well, they've been going strong for quite a while. Let's have a look to see how the roots are doing. In comparison on the growth, this is a fairly average salmon one, and you can see the roots are coming out of the bottom of this pot, so that is definitely ready to plant out. And the Bianco, well, just a couple of roots peeking out, but not much more than that. So they're a little bit behind. And the Pastello, wow. Oh, surprisingly, despite the sort of top growth, there is actually some roots coming out the bottom. I've got to be careful, these feel a little bit damp, so I've got to be careful that I don't overwater ranunculus. Right, quick look at how I've put the dahlias to bed. So happy that I've managed to put the dahlias to bed. We've been busy over the last couple of days. In fact, it was only yesterday. And there should be a little sequence, I filmed a little sequence to show you the steps from cutting the dahlias right back, mulching and securing the tarpaulin. Ideally, don't cut the dahlias until the first frost. So make sure you take out any pathetic or obviously rotten dahlias. This was never very good during the season and I marked it up as one to dig up. So I'm trying the belt and braces approach with labelling this year with a label on the netting, which will end up on ground level shortly once we've pruned everything. And we've also got one on the stem, so hopefully come the spring we can identify the dahlia. Mound up each dahlia tuber with some homemade compost. I've used half a bay of compost to cover 12 beds. Put the netting down to ground level before putting over the tarpaulin. Cover the area with tarpaulin and anchor down as best you can. Chop up the dahlia stems as small as you possibly can before putting on your compost heap. This area is all done now and I can forget about it for the winter, which is fantastic. So the 6 dahlia beds, which are between 30 and 40 dahlias altogether, they have all been put to bed. Don't tend to dig up the dahlias, that's an awful lot of work. I haven't got the space to store them. They would potentially, some of them would still rot or die anyway, so for the last 8 years this is what I've done and it works for me. Well, that's it for another garden tour. That's the November one done. So just December to go, and that'll complete the set of 12 tours of my cutting patch here on the Cotswold Edge. I hope you've enjoyed it and do ask me any questions if you have any.